Welcome to Unscripted with Russo. For our podcast, we decided to explore the people behind the narratives. I'll introduce decision makers and influencers and find out the intimate story behind their rise to success. Welcome to another episode of Unscripted with Russo. I'm your host, Ashley Russo, and I am being joined by an amazing community advocate, Veronne Demesyeux. She is the Associate Executive Director for New Bethany Ministries in Bethlehem. Veronne, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
I want to get to know you a little bit and find out where you grew up and tell me a little bit about your family structure and what kind of kid you were.
Okay. So I grew up in Westbury, New York. That is in Long Island. I am one of 7 siblings.
Wow, big family. What number are you?
I am second to last.
Okay, so you're more on the baby, the youngest side.
Exactly. If it wasn't for my little brother, I would be the baby. So he saved me from that.
I love it. So did you have a lot, were there a lot of people sort of mothering and parenting you with all those older siblings?
Too many parents in my household. Okay. So of course it was my parents. I have 5 brothers, 4 of them being older, so they always thought like they were in charge of me. Till this day, they still think they're in charge of me. So
wow, that is a lot of brothers. Yeah. How did having all of those older siblings and also primarily boys influence the kind of kid you were? Were you did you jump in with them and you were a tomboy, or did you go the other direction and say, forget it, I stay out of my room, it's pink and dolls?
So I was a little bit on the fence. I've had my moments where it was like purely tomboy. I want to play basketball. I want to go hang out with my brothers, play the video games. And then once I started making more female friends, then it became I want to go get my nails done. I want to feel like I'm all cute and pretty. So I kind of had to like ride that fence for a while. College, I would say, is really when I started getting into being more feminine overall.
Well, if you can't beat them, join them, I guess, right?
Exactly. And I could not beat them. That was for sure.
Yeah. So what kind of hobbies were you into? I mean, besides, did you play sports? Did you like music? Tell me a little bit about what little Veronne was like.
So I love music. I love classic R&B music. And I was big into sports. So throughout all of high school, I did basketball, I did tennis, I did softball. I ran track for a few, I did volleyball. Pretty much anything that I could possibly do, I did.
You like to stay active, I guess, then.
Yes. And also my parents were pretty strict. So as, the youngest female in the household, I couldn't just go and say, I'm hanging out with my friends until whatever time. It had to be something that was school related or I couldn't do it. So sports was kind of my release to be like, well, we got a game today. We have practice today.
That is really funny. And I'm the oldest, but also, as the oldest, your parents are sometimes nervous. And I think back, and I think that's probably the reason I joined so many clubs and sports, because I was able to stay after school and be with my friends and have an activity that was safe and guarded. So it's kind of a good thing if you think about it, right? We weren't just hanging out at the mall killing time.
We were being productive.
Right. Exactly. Did you have a first job? Did you have a job in high school, or were you too busy with sports?
My first job was at Russo Cinemas, which was a movie theater right up the road from my parents' home. Half of my high school worked there. So literally it was like going to school after school.
See, that was another creative way to hang out with your friends while working.
Absolutely. I was always trying to find a way to be out of the house and not get myself into trouble. Because I also knew one little thing, my parents would definitely be all over me. So
and did you get free tickets to the movies if you worked
all the time? I think I watched every movie that ever came out from like 2006 to 2008.
I love it.
I was there all the time. I was picking up extra shifts. I was staying later on shifts. Anything I could possibly do just to be like, well, now I feel cool. I get to stay out late. But really, I'm like, I'm working.
Do you look back at this point now and think about maybe some lessons or skills that being part of a sports team, being part of a work team have taught you that you've brought into your professional life? I mean, maybe we don't realize it when we're kids, but things you think about now?
I would say I was never comfortable depending on people. Just in my household in general, my brothers were always the type that's like, tough it up, you got this, you have to do this. So it was always feeling like I have to do it or it won't get done. And being part of a team kind of changes that up a bit, where it's like, no, you can't do this on your own. There is no I in team. That was one thing my coach always said. If one person is slacking, we're all slacking. So that's something I've taken into my professional life, where it's like, no matter what level you're on, if once you're a part of a team, one person's failure is everyone's failure, just as one person's win is everyone's win. So
Yeah, it's a
that's
great way to
something.
look at it. I know one of the things we talk a lot about professionally on our team is this idea of playing to people's strengths and
Yes.
covering their blind spots. And what's really interesting is sports naturally teaches you that, right? You own, I'm really good in the outfield, but I'm not great at bat. So I'm not good. You know what I mean? It's just
Yes, you learn what you're good at, you stay in your position, and you support other people flourishing in their positions.
exactly. Well, that's a great lesson to take forward from sports for sure.
Absolutely.
And then what about school? Now I know that you went to Farmingdale State University of New York, right?
Yes.
Okay. And did everyone go to college in your family? Was it something that was considered what you needed to do, or was were you a trailblazer?
I would say I was a trailblazer. Of all of my siblings, I was the first to go to college and actually complete it. My older brothers, 2 out of the 4 tried, and then by their second year gave it up. I almost did quit, to be honest with you. So my first year of college was kind of, first of all, there was a lot going on for me. In regards to just family life in general, there was a lot of death surrounding my first year of college. So I kind of went into it with like a heavy state of mind. And then it was like a little taste of freedom as well, where I'm like, well, my parents aren't here to watch my every move, so I'm going to try the stupid things that they never let me try.
What do you think your motivator was to stick with it? Because you ended up switching schools?
Yes, I ended up switching. I ended up at SUNY Old Westbury, which is where I completed my undergrad. So once I kind of took some time to get my mind together, I did have to revisit my purpose in going to school. My senior year of high school, I actually lost 2 of my nephews. They passed away by drowning.
Oh my gosh, Veronne, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Well, what a terrible thing for your family to go through.
It was a horrible experience, but it kind of gave me that passion behind wanting to complete my degree. In my head, I was going to be a social worker. I was going to work with the children. I'm going to make sure nothing bad ever happens to children ever again a day in life. Now, of course, that's not reality. But it's what fueled me to say, you know what, no matter what happened, no matter how I messed up, I have to get this degree because I have to make a difference.
Well, Veronne, that is amazing. And that is such a really strong message for people listening who are maybe going through something difficult, of the good that can come from a tragic experience. So with that, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with Unscripted with Russo. There's nothing like wintertime in the Christmas city, but any time of year, Bethlehem's rich history, culture, food, and fun make it a great hangout spot. Take a walk on the artsy South Side, catch a great band at Steel Stacks, or enjoy the quaint history of Hotel Bethlehem. There are so many options, but before you book your trip, head over to Facebook and like Lehigh Valley, PA. Before you know it, you'll have a full itinerary of places you won't want to miss. Welcome back to Unscripted with Russo. I'm Ashley Russo, and I am here today talking to Veronne Demesyeux. I'm practicing the French, the very limited French I learned in middle school. I think you say Demesyeux.
Yes, there you go.
In the English translation, Demesyeux, but I like to say my practice a little bit. So Veronne is joining us. She's the Associate Executive Director of New Bethany Ministries, and she left us on an amazing journey and note about her childhood and what really propelled her to get her education. And the example that you've set for your family and your community, Veronne, is really outstanding. Tell me a little bit more about that drive. You talked about losing your nephews in a tragic drowning accident, and that drive for you to get your education. But I think it extends beyond that, doesn't it? It extends to helping the community and what you now do in your career. So talk to me about that a little bit.
Absolutely. I learned early on, and with my initial motivation being to save all the children in the world, and recognizing fairly quickly that that was impossible, I kind of then geared to, I want to help anyone I can possibly help as I come in contact with them throughout my life journey. And that kind of solidified my social work mission, where it's just, whether it is the homeless, whether it's the poor, whether it's anyone who is just oppressed in general, I just want to help the best way I can possibly help. So whether that's giving out some food, whether that's giving clothes, whatever it could possibly be to make a difference, that is now my life's mission. Just do something that'll make a positive difference.
And you got your degree in psychology. I know that I have a daughter who's just starting her senior year of high school, and she took psychology junior year, and it really opened up something in her. She went to Barnes and Noble and started getting books and reading on mindfulness and journaling. And it's so awesome to watch that happen. But on the flip side, it's also one of those majors that you think, like, if you don't become a clinical psychologist, what do you do with it? But you've made this amazing connection between that degree and the work that you do. So talk to me a little bit about your early work as a mental health and with the Mental Health Association and in mental health, and that work that you did, and why that was something that you were drawn to early in your career.
So the Mental Health Association of Nassau County was actually my first professional job, which I gained through an internship from being in my undergrad program at SUNY Old Westbury. My supervisor at that time, Maya Hodgson, which is a dear friend of mine now, literally molded me. She gave me the ins and outs in regards to, just the system in general, the right people that I needed to know to get the job done to the best of my ability. I never thought I would go into working with the mentally ill population, but the longer I stayed in that internship, the more I kind of saw it from a different light. I think that those with mental illnesses and substance abuse, issues in that regard, they kind of have a stigma on them. And I was guilty of placing that stigma on them as well, where it's kind of like, okay, well, why can't you just get your life together? Why can't you just do better? And unfortunately, that truly is easier said than done, especially for those who feel like they are constantly being beaten down by life or don't have those additional resources, which I was thankful to have. It's an easy path to get lost on. So once I kind of got hands-on in that realm, there was no turning back. I discovered my passion was, as much as I love to work with children, my passion is helping anyone I can possibly help. And those with mental illness at that point in time was the number one, subgroup.
It's amazing how often mental illness is misunderstood, and how many circumstances that we kind of place judgment on actually come from mental illness. Have you seen a change over the last decade or so of the way society, people, physicians are starting to approach mental illness? It feels to me like it's coming to the forefront. We're talking about it more, as if like it's diabetes, like it's a thing.
Exactly. And honestly, I love to see it. Now, when you think of mentally ill individuals or those suffering with substance abuse addiction, there's more of an empathetic feel connected to it, rather than the blame game of, well, how did this happen to that person? Why did they let it happen like that? A lot of people like to say that, if you have a strong mind, then certain things just can't happen to you. That's not reality. Unfortunately, we are not in control of our own destiny. It takes one bad situation that can easily turn your whole entire life upside down. So I definitely think that in comparison to 10 years ago, the way that we look at mentally ill adults and children, or the way we look at the substance abuse population, it's more with an empathetic viewpoint.
Which is so important, and so tied to the work that you are now doing with New Bethany Ministries. So tell us a little bit about how you found the Lehigh Valley, and we're so lucky and so grateful that you are here. And New Bethany, how do we lure you away from New York?
Well, first I have to say I am very thankful to have landed in this position. It was not planned whatsoever. As I said, growing up, I was pretty much, my family told me what I was doing, when I was doing it, how I was doing it. I remember when I was first applying for college, and in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna go down south and I'm gonna go upstate and anywhere that's away from New York. Unfortunately, that was not my reality. Both my parents said, no, you're not going anywhere. So that's how I ended up at Farmingdale. And then after that, I was like, okay, well, once I'm done with my degree, then I'm going to be an adult. Then I can leave and I can go wherever I want. Then I landed my first real job, which is like, okay, you'd be an idiot to get a real position right out of college and up and leave that. So I was like, okay, fine. Everyone says you stay in your first real job at least 3 years, make sure it looks good, but then I'm leaving.
You were going to assert that independence one way or another. I could tell.
It was my mission, no matter what. But then, of course, after my 3 years, I worked with another wonderful organization, Broken But Not Destroyed, which was a homeless organization for men and women. And I was privileged to be the associate executive director there. So I'm like, I can't leave this. This is another great opportunity. So instead, I'm going to go back to school and get my master's while I'm here. Then I said, as soon as I'm done with my master's, no matter what, nothing will hold me back. I am leaving for sure. It still took about another year after that. I have 2 siblings that was already in the Lehigh Valley that kept trying to tell me, like, you just need to make the move, just drop it all, just come on. And one day I woke up and I was like, you know what? I'm moving next month.
Today's the day.
Today's the day. I'm making the decision.
And did you make the decision to move here before you had a job here?
I did.
Wow. So that's a big leap.
It was huge. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life. But like I said, thank God, I am a strong believer in the higher power. I believe that he was watching and guiding my steps the entire time, because honestly, New Bethany was just the perfect place. And it was actually, I believe, my second interview I had when I moved out here. And I was just
amazing.
Like, one way or another, I'm getting to that position.
And you first were on board as the operations manager, I believe, right? And then
Yes.
to director of operations, and now recently as the associate executive director. Tell me what you love about, well, first of all, for those who may not know, what is New Bethany? What does it do for the community? And what do you love about it?
So New Bethany Ministries is a community of hope and support. We tend to the homeless population, those with lower income levels. We have a food pantry that provides food. We have a hospitality center that provides hot lunch, a shower, mailing services. We have transitional housing for our families, independent housing for our single adults. Most recently, we developed a housing assistance program where we have been able to help over 1,000 applicants in regards to maintaining their households, especially during COVID. So New Bethany does a little bit of everything, and that's precisely why I love it. It's not geared to helping one specific population. Anyone who comes to our doors and state what services they're in need of, one way or another, we find the proper resources to assist them.
New Bethany is such an amazing place, and we're so fortunate to work with you guys in so many significant ways to see firsthand the work that's being done on behalf of our community. So thank you. You know, you went from a family where college wasn't the norm, right? So you were the first one to go. You almost didn't make it through. Yeah. You made it through. You get your master's, and now I understand you're actually working on your doctorate in social work. You've become a lifelong learner, Veronne.
Yeah. And I swore after my master's, I would never entertain the thought of school again. But something has been happening lately where I just kind of felt like I need to do something else. And I do want to eventually get into that teaching realm where I can kind of, help those coming behind me and kind of hopefully guiding their path, especially when it comes to social work. I feel like social work is an area that does not get enough attention, and social workers do so much good. And I'm not just saying that because I am one, but it could be in any, aspect of life. You can find a social worker to help.
Yeah, I think people don't realize how integrated social workers are in so many aspects of life. One of my very best friends from college actually is a social worker out in San Francisco, and she's worked in a variety of jobs. And in knowing her, prior to even doing the work I do now, I learned so much about how instrumental social workers are in really like every single walk of life. And people don't recognize that. So I'm glad that you're sharing that. It's really important. What are you hoping for professionally in the future? You know, where do you go next? And what kind of lessons have you learned in your time with New Bethany and the Lehigh Valley? You know, things that people may not be familiar with.
Well, one thing I was not familiar with was how community oriented the Valley truly is. At any given point in time, if we put out, whether it's a Facebook post or on LinkedIn, no matter where we indicate a need, community members are jumping to it. And that is something that I have never personally experienced anywhere that I've lived, where people are so easily able to come together to provide a need or, secure resources for those who are in need. So that has been the biggest thing for me, where I'm just like, this is amazing. People want to help.
Well, that is something we have in common, Veronne, because really the whole purpose behind the Peak TV and ASR Media was because I was struck by the exact same thing you just mentioned when I moved here and was living here, as a young mom. And I just thought, I've never seen anything like it. And this community is so special in that way. And I think people who are from here think it's the norm in
it's
community,
not.
and it's really not. So I love that as well. All right, we're going to take another quick break, but when we get back, we're going to talk to Veronne a little bit more about all the things she loves about the Lehigh Valley. So stick with us. This is Unscripted with Russo. As a mother of two, I know it can be tough to find activities that everyone will enjoy. Luckily, the Lehigh Valley has so many ways to treat your family without breaking the bank. You can experience cool discoveries at the Da Vinci Science Center or all aboard the WKNS railroad train for an afternoon adventure. There's fun around every corner of the Lehigh Valley, and you can uncover it all on Discover Lehigh Valley's website. Visit discoverlehighvalley.com for more information. Welcome back to Unscripted with Russo. If you are just tuning in, I am being joined by Veronne Demesyeux, and she is the Associate Executive Director at New Bethany Ministries. Veronne has told us all about her journey as a child, growing up in a family with 7 children, where she was number 6, and getting her education, her transition into her work in the field of social work, mental health, and just amazing career so far. And you're a young woman, Veronne. I mean, you have a lot of life to live, hopefully, and so much more to accomplish. And we're so thrilled you're here. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you moved to the Lehigh Valley. You've been here for how long now?
This is year 3 now.
Year 3. All right. So getting entrenched, getting to know things. You've been here during an interesting time, of course, because it's been changing and growing. And then we had that 18 months of COVID that we've changed a lot of things and what you were able to experience. But I'd love to ask you what you love about this region. I know you talked about how people give back, but what else do you love about living here and making your home here?
The community events. I feel like coming here literally every month, and of course this is outside of COVID, there's always something to do. Whether it's Music Fest, the Blueberry Festival, the Bear Fest, like there's always some kind of activity that you will find something exciting to do. It always tends to be family friendly. I love the pet adoption events. Those are my favorites to go to. I adopted a dog when I moved out here. So now I'm always like, let's see if we can find you a best friend.
That's awesome. What a nice thing to do. And it is amazing. I'm always floored, even just whether I'm looking on Facebook events or I'm driving around, or there's like always something that you could just pull into and do around here. It's amazing. Yeah, it really is amazing. Do you have a favorite restaurant or a place that's kind of the place, if you have one place to go eat, do you love to go?
Oh, I'm a foodie, so I'm like thinking of all these food places now. I'm like, I love that and I love that. I guess I really, really love steak, so Prime is amazing. And then there's a place out in Easton, Chatter House.
Okay, I haven't been to that.
Oh, it is amazing. It never disappoints. And I love seafood, of course. So all those like flaming crab and all those places that have been popping up lately. I'm like, yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, great places to go. What about something to do? I know you mentioned with pets and getting out and about. Is there an activity that you consistently do? I know some people say they go biking or they, go on the rail trail, something like that. Is there an activity that you love here?
I would say tennis. I really enjoy playing tennis. It is a good stress reliever for me. So yeah, I'd say tennis, and I'm right up the road from a little park. So sometimes I force my little brother to come out and play with me.
All right. Well, I haven't played in about 10 years, but I just vowed recently to get back into it. So now I know someone I can go hit
Let's
with.
do it.
My daughter's a senior a varsity tennis player. In fact, that's what I'm doing later today. I spend most of my time from August to October watching tennis matches and getting very into it. But it's time for me to start swinging the racket. So we'll connect on that, Veronne.
Yes.
I love that. All right, good. So now before we close out the podcast, I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions. I just want to confirm you've never heard these questions, correct?
I have not. Now
All
I'm
right.
nervous.
All right. What is the one food you could not live without?
Crab legs. Oh my gosh.
All right, now you have to meet my daughter because crab legs would be her answer, and she plays tennis. So that's enough to make.
Come on, we got this.
All right. What actress would you cast to play you in a movie about your life?
Gabrielle Union.
Yes, nice.
I love her.
Oh my goodness, that's a great answer. All right. If you didn't have the job you have now, what would you be doing instead? Something completely different than social work.
I thought I would be a neonatologist, which is a doctor for premature babies.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is totally different. Well, it sounds like you're on your path to getting your doctorate and becoming a Dr. Veronne anyway. So you're on your
Don't
way.
leave me with premature babies, but
Nope, that's nerve-wracking.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Name a person who inspires you.
My mom. Everything about her. I just think she's the best person on earth.
It's great to have a good mom, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, a strong role model. All right. Your favorite hobby?
Ooh, I'd say right now, cuddling with my dog.
Oh my gosh, that's the best. I've got a dog snuggled up not too far from where I am right now. So
it's like a perfect stress reliever after all these hectic days. It's the best thing that just calms me.
that's wonderful. Well, Veronne, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate getting to know you a little bit better. We appreciate all of your work in the community and on behalf of New Bethany Ministries. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Ashley. It was great.
You've been listening to Unscripted with Russo. Until next time.